Hello and welcome back to Doctor Who, the Cancelled Years. In this video, we'll be covering season 37 of Doctor Who. So, let's get started. Season 37 would have been the first season for Aidan Gillen as the Doctor, the second season for Helen Baxendale as Jean Robinson, and the first season for Russell T Davies as showrunner. This would have been the first season for the new Doctor, Aidan Gillen. Gillen's Doctor would initially be an enthusiastic figure who explored the universe for the sheer love and experience of it. This season would have brought a massive update to the show. The first would have been the introduction of new showrunner Russell T Davies. Like his predecessor, Russell T Davies would act as an executive producer as well as head writer. This season, like all since season 32, would have been produced by Real Time Pictures. However, now the series will be co-produced with Real Time Pictures and BBC Wales. Because of this, head of drama at BBC Wales, Matthew Robinson, was brought on as an executive producer. Joining Robinson would be Mal Young as another executive producer. Taking on the role of the series producer would be Anne Harrison Baxter. This season also would have saw an update to the episode format. The story count would be increased from 7 to 8. With this, however, came a decrease of episodes to 10, meaning there would be 6 single-part stories and 2 two-part stories. This wouldn't have been too much of an issue, however, as single-part stories were better received than the two-parters and were easier to write for. Another change to the series would have been the music. Previously, the music in the show had been done by different composers over different episodes. Now, every episode would be done by just one composer. Taking over as the main composer would be Bond composer David Arnold. Finally, this season would have saw the debut of a new title sequence, along with a new arrangement of the theme tune done by David Arnold, as well as a new logo for the show. The new theme music would have been a more spooky and mysterious take on the theme. The new title sequence would have gone back to the Starfield design, similar to the Sid Sutton titles of the 1980s, but would have been done in an original way. And now, let's get to the episodes. The first episode would have been The Flood, written by Russell T Davies. This would have been a unit story and would have featured the return of Winfred Bambera. The story would have been about a group of aliens named the Dions trying to take over the Earth by infecting the oceans of the world with their DNA, so anyone who comes into contact with the water is turned into a Dion. The story would have opened with a pre-title sequence of Winfred Bambera in her office. Then all of a sudden, alarms go off all across Unit HQ and the TARDIS smashes through the wall of her office. The new Doctor steps out of the TARDIS and we get a scene similar to the beginning of Deep Breath from our own universe, of the Doctor taking in his surroundings and getting used to his new body a bit before collapsing to the ground. Throughout the story, we would have saw the Doctor and Jean working with Unit and Bambera to find a way to stop the Dions and reverse the damage. The Dions are eventually defeated when the Doctor creates a virus that removes the Dion DNA from the water. However, by doing so, he accidentally kills the Dions in the process. An ongoing thread of the story would have been the Doctor's memory slipping in and out, and Jean coming to terms with the new Doctor. And at the end of the story, after the Doctor picks out his new outfit, a plain white t-shirt and a green leather jacket, Jean agrees to continue her travels with him. The second episode would have been Plant Matter, written by Mark Gatiss. This story would saw the Doctor taking Jean to Frankenstein, the largest food market in the galaxy. It initially seems like a nice adventure, up until people start falling ill after eating a new food named green seeds. And furthermore, the Doctor discovers that strange plant matter is starting to grow on the victims. It turns out that the people are being turned into crinoids, and that green seeds are in fact crinoid pods. It turns out that the seller of green seeds, Mr. Bryan, is responsible. His plan was to convert everyone at Frankenstein into crinoids, and use them to scare off people from becoming vegetarian or vegan, as he despises their communities. At the end of the story, Bryan is arrested, and the crinoids are taken away to a medical centre, in hopes of somehow reversing the damage. This story would have received many complaints from people in the vegan community, as they thought it was an attack on their beliefs and choices. However, it wasn't the intention of the story, and was meant to be a harmless bit of fun. The third episode would have been Night of the Scarecrows, written by Stephen Moffat. This would have been an unusual story, as it would have been told through the found footage format. The story would have been told through a young woman named Catherine Darlington on her holiday. However, during the night, a group of scarecrows begin terrorising the town she's staying in. We would have saw the Doctor and Jean in the town trying to help as many people as possible. We learn that the scarecrows are actually robots, being controlled by an alien race who were programmed to kidnap people and return them to their craft to experiment on. The story would have ended with the Doctor defeating the aliens off screen, causing their ship to destruct in the middle of the town. The Doctor evacuates everyone from the town before it can blow up. However, we never see the final escape, as Catherine accidentally drops her camera and doesn't go back for it. The story would have ended where we see the town being blown up through the camera, and then the camera cuts to static, and then black, and the camera is dead, and then the end credits come in. The fourth episode would have been The Holy Terror, written by Robert Sherman. The story sees the Doctor and Jean arriving in a medieval castle after the crowning of the new Emperor, Pepin VI. Wanting to learn more about the place they've arrived in, the Doctor visits a man named Eugene, who is responsible for writing the new Bible. However, the Doctor soon notices that all the old Bibles of previous emperors appear to have been written by Eugene. Then later on in the story, the Doctor discovers a secret room underneath the castle, where a man named Childeric has his son locked up in a small room, cut off from human interaction, as he hopes by raising a person who's never interacted with someone or even heard the human voice, he'll become a god who speaks the language of the gods. But Eugene is terrified of the boy, as he believes he's seen the face of the boy somewhere before. Eventually, the boy's released. However, when he is, he's like an evil god and wants to kill everyone. He begins to look for his father, and after scanning Childeric, he discovers that he isn't his father, and this results in the boy using his powers to destroy him. The boy then begins shifting around the castle, searching for his father, and anyone who isn't his father ends up being killed. And we eventually learn from the Doctor and Eugene that Eugene is in fact the father. It turns out that the entire castle is a prison created by Eugene for himself after he murdered his son. He made the castle and filled it with generic stereotype characters in an attempt to escape his guilt for murdering his son. However, his son has become a part of the dream, and we learn that Eugene has been reliving the same events for a long time, where his son goes in search for his father before Eugene is forced to kill him again, which would restore everything back to normal and everything repeats over and over again. Eventually, the Doctor helps Eugene break free of the cycle by convincing him not to kill his son, but instead, Eugene lets his son kill him, which results in everything around them fading from existence, leaving only the Doctor and Jean. The fifth episode would have been Wrong Lives, written by Russell T Davies. story would have been set in a hospital, where the Doctor and Jean are taken in after an off-screen adventure. We learn throughout the story that they were involved in an alien attack, which resulted in their minds being removed from their bodies and stored on discs. In a pre-title sequence scene, we see the nurses of the hospital, who are cat people, are able to recover their memories and put them back in their bodies, but we soon discover that they've been put into the wrong bodies. The story sees the Doctor and Jean trying to get back into their right bodies, while also dealing with a threat from within the hospital. The story is pretty much the same plot as our own universe's New Earth, with the hospital containing humans with all known diseases. It's very much the same as New Earth, but with Cassandra being replaced with a normal human villain, and the Doctor and Jean being the only ones in swapped bodies. However, there's a new element in the story involving the Doctor and Jean's body swap. While the Doctor copes okay in Jean's body, as he's somewhat used to having a new body, Jean isn't. The Doctor's brain is too much for her memory, as she begins to see what he sees, and it's killing her. And unless they don't swap back soon, Jean will die, leaving the Doctor trapped in Jean's body. The rest of the story plays pretty much how you would expect, with pretty much the same resolution in New Earth. And at the end of the story, the Doctor and Jean get help from a few innocent nurses, and are restored back to their own bodies. Because of the whole body swapping plot, this story would have received a unique title sequence, with Helen Baxendale receiving first credit, Aidan Gillen receiving second credit, and Baxendale's picture appearing in the titles instead of Gillen. Also in the end credits, Baxendale is credited as the Doctor, and Gillen is credited as Jean, which technically makes Helen Baxendale the first female to play the Doctor. The 6th episode would have been The Ghosts of Victoria's Manor, written by Paul Cornell. The story sees the Doctor and Jean visiting an old manor with a group of people, in one of those event things where you stay in an old-fashioned house and act as if you're a person from the past. We initially see the Doctor and Jean enjoying the event, that the Doctor notes about how some things aren't accurate, and to the Doctor's surprise, he soon spies a familiar face among the people staying with them, as he spots his old companion Bernice Summerfield, who appears to be staying in the manor too, with 2 of her friends. The Doctor considers going over to say hello, but decides to leave the past in the past. The main plot of the story would start later on at night, when Bernice and her friends are moving around the house with some kind of trekking equipment. Jean gets out of bed to get some water, and the Doctor is exploring the house for fun, and the 3 groups soon bump into each other, and Bernice learns of the Doctor's presence. We learn that the reason Bernice is in the manor is because she and her friends are tracking down the source of some unknown alien signals in the manor. It turns out that the manor is infected with ghosts, but not actual ghosts. They're a race of aliens who crashed to Earth millions of years ago. They died upon impact, and their shuttle fell deep under the ground. However, the shuttle had an emergency setting, which resurrected the aliens as projections. Then millions of years later, their bodies were covered up with the construction of the manor. The ghosts aren't dangerous though. They're simply spirits stuck in place for all eternity. A lot of the story would have focused on Bernice, and how her life is going after she left the Doctor. We learn that she's still in charge of the pyramid, and while she's been better, she's currently doing alright. We also learn about her 2 friends, named Jennifer Ward and Jack Afton, and we discover they're not actually human, as Jennifer is in fact a Zygon stuck in human form, and Jack's brain is human, though in an auton body. Eventually, Bernice, with the help from the Doctor and Jean, are able to free the alien spirits from their torture by disabling the signal produced by the ship's emergency system, and finally letting the aliens rest. The 7th episode would have been Cold Land, written by Steve Lyons. This story would have been set in the winter of 1863. It would have saw the Doctor and Jean exploring an old London city and simply enjoying being in the past. They find it to be really snowy, but they don't think much of it at first. It's only when the Doctor goes back to the TARDIS to pick up some money for Jean that he realises that there's way too much snow. It turns out that the snow is in fact part of an invasion from a race known as the Chrysalids, who are trying to convert the Earth into an icy world for them to live on. However, the Doctor and Jean are able to defeat the Chrysalids when the Doctor manages to create a wave around the Earth to slightly raise the temperature enough so that humans don't notice, but enough to make the planet uninhabitable for the Chrysalids. The final episode, we're doing The Hope of Humanity, written by Russell T Davies. This story would have been set on board a human colony ship. We learn early on that this ship is from Earth, from the very far future, as the planet has become too polluted to live on, so the human race has gone to live among the stars for a bit. However, something is wrong with the ship as things begin to break down, and the faction leaders of the ship are slowly being killed off one by one. It turns out that the Master is on board and that he is responsible. His plan is to hijack the ship and wipe out the human race by piloting the ship into a sun. However, the Master's plans are stopped when the Doctor is able to pilot the ship away from the sun. Then unfortunately, before the Doctor can confront the Master, he once again escapes in his TARDIS. And that concludes season 37 of Doctor Who. A pretty good season altogether, and set up the new era and Doctor very well. So join me next time for season 38. Until then, thank you for watching and goodbye.